morning, Singapore, and good morning to Dr. Geraldine Tan from the therapy room.
Morning!
Good morning, Jerry. So this morning we're going to be talking about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD.
That was a car crash, no?
But it's ADHD in adults.
Yes, in adults, because we've been having so many people come in, adults asking for it. So I thought, let's do, I know we did ADHD before, but we focus a lot on the children. This one, we want to focus on the adults.
There is no such thing. Adults have no ADHD.
Glenn has ADHD.
No.
Yeah,
I'm sure he
children
does.
have ADHD.
Half the time he's sitting and he doesn't listen to what we say, and then his attention is on somewhere else, and I'm sure he has ADHD.
That's not. Wait, hold on for a while. Yeah,
Thinking
There
that's
you go,
not
see?
true.
There you go.
Can't hold him for more than 2 minutes.
But is this a real thing, or is this a psychological thing?
No, what is it?
It is a psychological.
It's a psychological thing.
Of course it's real. Of course, the frustrations are real, the disorder is real, and psychological disorders are real, Glenn.
Okay, yes.
Okay, but
Don't say is it all in your head, okay?
if an adult has
It starts off being in the head and then it becomes real, right? Sorry, was FD trying to say something?
I
Yes.
was trying to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
If an adult has ADHD, is this sort of like left over from childhood? Did it start there and he didn't realize it, and then only as an adult?
Okay, so they come with various sort of complaints, right? They come in and they say, "Oh, I never noticed that I have these issues when I was younger." Okay, so those are one category. There's another category that says, I was very frustrated when I was young, but I didn't know what it was, until I'm older and I came across this article and I seem to tick off on all the boxes. So there's another group of people.
Oh,
So that's
Yeah.
like self sort of telling yourself based off an article that you have ADHD.
I think they were already frustrated and they were trying to figure out what was going on. I mean, and there's another category where the children are going through so much challenges. They bring them to someone, get them diagnosed, and realize that actually they have ADHD. That means the parents have ADHD themselves.
So here's the question. So you're saying that okay, this is stuff I didn't realize when I was a child, or I realized it when I was a child, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But can an adult develop ADHD as an adult? So he never had it as a child.
The development of adult ADHD, you don't develop it. It is it could be situational, so it appears like you developed it, but you're already predisposed to it.
Oh wow. Okay, so it's already somewhere in there. It just hasn't shown itself. Is that what you're saying?
Are we
Wow.
thinking too much about this?
Probably.
It's like, how many people actually know they have ADHD? And you know what? Before we go any further, Jerry, could you tell us, especially, for the benefit of people who are listening in right now, what are some of the traits of someone who has ADHD?
Okay, so the very classic, usually it starts with the children, right? Or the before adult ADHD came into the our journals, our articles, and everything, it was the children, and we were diagnosing the children with ADHD. Primarily 3 types of ADHD. One is the restless impulsive type. So in the children, you would see them running around very restless. Then there is the inattentive, which is harder to catch. They space out a lot of careless mistake. They miss out a lot of things, forgetting this and forgetting that. And then last one would be the combined presentation. That means you have the restless impulsive plus the inattentive type. Yeah.
Okay. I'd be interested to find out how you tell apart the ones who actually have ADHD and then the ones who really just don't want to learn. when it comes to things like whether it's an adult or a child, but we're talking about adults specifically. Because, I mean, some people are just careless. Some people are just lazy. Some people are just, not mindful of the things they're doing. So how do you tell the ADHD from those people apart? We can speak more about that on the Big Show TV.
But I'm just thinking, like, if there's an adult in our midst, right, who has ADHD, we would recognize that person straight away. Because, I mean, based on the traits that you just mentioned, right, I mean, it'll be very unusual to see an adult behaving in that way.
But then there are different levels of it as well. Some have very low.
It is a spectrum. And by the time you're an adult, you probably would have learned some restraints, some coping strategies. So it may not be as obvious.
So I'm just picturing an adult jumping against the wall, trying to stick on the ceiling, and
like Spider-Man.
With Velcro?
Yeah, with Velcro, yes. I hope so, at least. Anyway, here are the calls with So Young. We'll continue this conversation with Dr. Geraldine Tan from the Therapy Room on the Big Show TV. So different levels, you're saying.
The whole spectrum.
So if it's mild, we'll never know.
But the thing is, when you're an adult, you're more... you feel that struggle, you start to feel more frustration, so it's more for yourself. There's no more measurement of like your grades, or you need to score A's, or your parents are chasing you, or your teacher is chasing you. So the frustration is primarily felt by the adult, and you're not performing at work perhaps, or you're not delivering your work to your standard, so you start to get angry with yourself.
Because when you're saying like no parents chasing you, you got to get the grades, it also sounds like an adult. Your boss is chasing you for your deadlines, you're not performing as well. What point do you come to before you see someone or that you know that you have ADHD?
Many of them don't, unless it is very, very severe, or is affecting their work so badly that they need to go and ask someone, or they tell their GP, or they tell someone who says, oh, it sounds like, and directs them to the correct people. But most of the time people just sit with it and live with it, just deal with it, as we are always told to do.
But could it be that it is it is not their fault? They do not have ADHD. They're just working for an organization, and there are more and more organizations like this right now. I mean, when I say like this, I mean organizations that don't know how to motivate their workers. And so maybe they're just feeling, really upset because they are, fools, who are in charge of the company.
They're working
who are
for
just,
fools?
who maybe are just not making any sense whatsoever. So the workers kind of, they get confused as well, and therefore they start to get frustrated. It's not that they have ADHD.
Sure. So then you're talking about a collective pool of people facing the same confusion and frustration.
Everyone in the company.
Correct. Right. But this one, we are talking about the individual looking around and going, how come I'm the only one, suffering, or I feel like I'm suffering. Or I everybody seems to comprehend, get themselves organized. How come I cannot organize myself?
Maybe that person is just weaker up here, and not ADHD. Because there are some people, right? When they work for a company like that, they'll just go like, "It's okay, I'll just go with the flow," But then there are others who will feel like, take it upon themselves and go like, "No, I would like to commit harikiri right now."
Well, I don't know whether harikiri is what we
That's right.
with a plastic dagger.
Spoon.
but
Like a back scratcher.
It's not just them taking upon themselves. Many of them are very, very intelligent. So they feel even worse because they want to achieve and overachieve, but they cannot. So they feel like they're failing all the time.
Okay.
Jerry, we're talking about this. I want to go back to what Glenn said a little earlier about adults
Oh, there you go. The Chua Chu Kang Wi-Fi.
bouncing off walls and whatever. When it comes to ADHD in adults, it's not necessarily a physical restlessness, is it? It can be a mental restlessness. The mind just never stops.
Exactly. And you would see so many of them, so exciting because they are in such high positions. They are running businesses. They could have like 4, 5 degrees under their belts, but yet they still feel that frustration. Yep. So and they feel bored. I mean, I don't know, maybe some of my colleagues are very ADHD. Sometimes they come to me and go, I just had one yesterday, right? And she sat with me and went, Jerry, do you have anything else for me to do? I'm very bored. I'm like, what? Wow. We are so busy. And you're so bored. But it is true. It's what FD said, right? It's that mental restlessness. I knew one of the clients, right? And she had 7 projects on hand.
Wow.
Started at the same time. And she goes, I cannot let go of anyone because if I do that, I'll be so bored. I'll go like, okay, but you have 7 projects and each one needs your time. So do you ever sleep at all?
That's not very efficient way of working, is it?
Yeah.
But it might be their way of working. They might not be able to just focus on one thing. Yeah.
So is that ADHD?
Oh, yes.
Or is that OCD?
OCD? No. So
It's not.
OCD is
Obsessive compulsive
disorder.
Okay.
Which is very, very different.
Okay.
But OCD can comorbid with ADHD. But it's completely
two different things.
Signs and everything.
disorders. Correct.
Okay. I was going to ask you a question. You said it's about the mind being restless, right? Constantly needing to be busy and doing something as well. What can one do to calm the mind then?
Play golf.
Not everyone wants to play golf.
Okay.
I wonder whether they want to calm the mind down or not. For some of them, they might not. For some, because they need that level of stimulation. Yeah,
Okay.
but they might need to learn different things. For example, how to put in structure or how to sequence certain things, how to prioritize, because their filter system might be a little bit faulty. So everything becomes a priority. So that's why you have 7 things open, right? Yeah. So they have not learned what is important, what is not so important. So everything becomes important.
Okay. What are the myths behind adult ADHD?
So you hear a lot of it saying, like things like no friends. You don't have any friends, but that's not true. Some of them are the most extroverted people and most sociable people that I know, and the most loyal people. Yeah. So just now we talked about the mental restlessness, right? And it's good
Jerry,
that
we're going to go back on the radio.
Okay.
Maybe we can cover this again. So, Angel,
Can.
maybe you can ask
myth.
Jerry that
Can.
question. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And let's also bring up some of the traits that some of these people with ADHD are going through, like the frustrations that you mentioned, just very briefly, just to recap. Okay, here we go. Good morning, Singapore. It's The Big Show with Glenn, Angel, FD, and Shaun. Such a pleasure every Tuesday to have Dr. Geraldine Tan from the therapy room with us. And today we are asking the question, can adults come down with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? This show is amazing. A couple of weeks back, we announced that, Angel came down with COVID. I mean, she's completely fine now. But I'm so happy that we have someone on the show that we can relate these things too, and today we're talking about ADHD, which FD has. So can you just tell us a little bit more?
So bad. No, I think
I like
do
how
know.
you diagnosed him.
That's why.
This week is the punk FD week.
oh,
And
That's-
you're
that's-
only
that's-
at Tuesday, FD.
I've always suspected that FD has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. What do you
I think it's more you, Glenn.
Huh?
I think it's you. All right, Dr. Jeremy.
dear me. Poor FD, he was just like nicely sitting there,
Right?
and then he got the arrow.
Always.
Sometimes I need to stimulate him like that because he's at home. I can't touch him. You see, if he's here, I'll pinch him once in a while.
I wonder whether you need the stimulation or whether he needs the stimulation.
That's the question.
That
That's
is-
the question.
Speaking of stimulation, Dr. Jerry, we were talking on the Big Show TV about adult ADHD.
Yep.
What are some of the signs and symptoms that adults who have ADHD might go through? And then after that, some of the myths that we need to bust about ADHD.
So some of the signs and symptoms that we can see, interrupting people's conversation, the restlessness. Why is
That's like all of us, isn't it?
overachieving and then failing, not reaching your potential, getting into trouble, poor time management, risk-taking behavior. So sometimes, not sometimes, actually, there are researchers doing research for some of the prisoners where they believe that some of them are undiagnosed ADHD sufferers. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are some signs and symptoms that we can see. And the myths. So the myths, they say that someone with ADHD has no friends, but that's not true. So some of them say that people with ADHD are weird. Actually, no, I don't think they are aliens. That they have a lack in motivation, or probably in their youth they have poor parenting. Oh, that one really stinks. That is not true at all. Or if they hear that you have you're an adult with ADHD or even a child with ADHD, sometimes you hear this and it still gets my goat all the time, where don't you need to go to a special school?
Oh.
Wow.
No.
That really annoys me because they look at people who have ADHD and they think of them as being disabled.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It really annoys me.
it does. Yeah.
That's not true at all. So
No.
if you have the tendency to say that, or if you've heard, you hear someone saying it, please let them know that people with ADHD can be very intelligent and can be your bosses and can lead, many organizations.
So how can we treat ADHD, Jerry?
There are different ways. So I think I want to focus on the person themselves, that they have actually a lot of control. So getting to know themselves, right? Like, what are some of your needs? So some of them work in bursts of energy. Like suddenly they would be on the ball, and when they are able to harness that ball of energy, they are so productive. But then after that, they will crash a little bit, where they go, I don't want to do anything already.
yes.
Yeah. So are you trying to say that not trying to say, but are you saying that people with ADHD should be encouraged to slow down?
They need to know themselves. They need to learn their uniqueness about their own ADHD, because everyone manifests differently. That's why it's so exciting. Some of us actually need a lot of movement, so they cannot sit still. If you put them in an admin role or just sit at the desk all day long, they will be so agitated and cranky and irritable. So we're not going to do that to them. We're going to get them out and do, other things.
It sounds like a lot of people I know.
It does.
It's almost like everyone I know has ADHD. I can't sit still at a desk from 9 to 5. That's for sure. It'll drive me crazy. But okay, let's talk more about ADHD in adults. And I'd like to ask you about the strengths of adults living with ADHD.
All right, all that on the Big Show TV. In the meantime, here's Coldplay with Up and Up on 1FM 91.3.
ADHD.
What's the worst case you've come across or studied in terms of hyperactivity? As in, like, how hyperactive, can someone actually get?
Just the hyperactive part, right? So the restlessness. So sometimes I'm in the session trying to talk to them, but they cannot sit down on the couch.
Wow.
So they're just walking around, just running.
Yeah, so just not running.
Okay.
Pacing.
Pacing. Okay.
So they'll go, oh, I can't sit down. So it's first you'll start to squirm a little bit, and then you go, okay, do you need to stand up? And standing is not enough, so they'll stand up, and you go like, okay, and you're trying to counsel them, and then they start pacing back and forth.
Do you stand when they stand? I mean, does that make it easier because you're at eye level? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, it depends on what I'm doing with them, right? If I want to match their level, I might.
Yeah.
But if I want to calm them down, and to coach maybe an appropriate behavior, I would stay seated.
Right. Okay.
And they would join me in a little while. And
Okay.
we don't want to make their behavior weird or wrong or anything like that, right? So if they need to stand, they stand. And that is what we encourage some of the schools to do, because some of the students need a bit more movement, or they need like movement breaks. So they are permitted to stand behind the class without disturbing the class, and then return to their seat. So they're usually seated behind.
Okay. What about the strengths of adults living with ADHD?
Well, there's so many famous people, with ADHD. Jim Carrey, Richard Branson, so there are so many strengths that an adult ADHD can have. One of my favorite is hyper focus.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, did you say Richard Branson?
Yes.
I understand when you say Jim Carrey, but when you mentioned Richard Branson.
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson.
Yes, that's why he's so creative. He takes risks. So it's so that's another thing, right? So they dare to do certain things. Calculated risks. So that's a wonderful thing about adult with ADHD. They are not so impulsive that they don't think about all the consequences. They do. And they know what they're going to lose if they lose it. I know Angel is trying to look for the
For celebrities
people.
with ADHD, yes.
There are a lot.
Yeah, I found Michael Phelps, Howie Mandel, Adam
Yes.
Levine, Justin Timberlake, Paris Hilton, Simone Biles.
So Michael Phelps, he harnesses that energy and just hyper focus and
Into
gets
the pool.
his goal. Yes, it's amazing. I'm so excited that we're talking about adult ADHD.
And seriously, if you look at any of these people, as Glenn was just now, you are so surprised that they have it.
Yep.
You don't even realize they have it.
But because it's not something that you see right
Exactly.
off, right? It's not like a physical trait that you're like, okay, that person's got an ADHD sign across the forehead, and you know, right?
No.
But it's something you can be proud of. It's not something that,
You need to be
you
ashamed
need
of.
to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but sometimes if we don't realize it and we struggle with it, so there are clients that struggle with ADHD at work. So I think I had mentioned before previously, one of the clients struggles so much reading the emails because I don't know why we want to send such lengthy emails.
Nobody knows.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of lengthy emails, so don't send me lengthy emails.
And we've learned from our career strategist Adrian Chu to not send
Don't
lengthy
do that.
emails as well.
So is
There's
it
so many people that do that. No.
There
Go
are.
ahead.
Sorry. Is it a case of ADHD people just trying to figure out what works for them? Like with someone like Michael Phelps, I mean, he's found out that going into the pool and being in that zone is what makes him who he is, right? So is it just a matter of people being able to control how they manage their time into that focus zone?
Yeah, but Michael Phelps, to balance things out, he smoked a lot of weed as well.
That's true.
Just to-
I see where Angel is going because
goal
Phelps
is-
has got the pool, Branson's got the business, Timberlake's
to
got his
focus.
music. You see where they've all gone.
And they've used that to their advantage.
Yeah.
So again, as a spectrum, we might not go to the extreme, but knowing what we can control, because a lot of times people say a disorder is something that you cannot control. In this case, it is not true. You are in control of your behavior and of your abilities. So if you know that you're going to open 10 things and cannot complete it, let's sit and learn how to structure ourselves, how to prioritize a little bit more. If structure is the one that gets you down, then let's look at what you can help yourself to liberate yourself so that you can express your creativity. But because it's so wide, the spectrum, right? We really cannot just go on the internet and tick a couple of boxes and then say that, oh, I need to do this or I need to do that. It is not just one solution and one solution only.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of help is there out there for people who have ADHD or wonder if they have ADHD?
So we will want to sit with them. So the psychologist would be able to diagnose you, sit with them, talk to them about what you can do. There is, if it's really, really severe, there is medication out there. There are support groups. There are more research going on. I think NUH is having a research program going on.
Would you ever say or tell someone who comes to you with ADHD to try and use it to their advantage?
So we don't tell them to come to us, but when
if they do, when they do come to you,
when they do, yes. So we've helped leaders, because they are having so much frustration with maybe dealing with their team, with even that tiny email, tiny thing like an email we think is tiny, but to them they are struggling so much. Just a tiny switch in, okay, can you get your team to text you instead or tell you face to face, made a world of difference for that particular leader. Another one was she was trying to set up her business, and she wasn't sure why she could not get it going, or she was feeling so frustrated. Not a lack of ability. It's not because she lacked ability, but because she was so disorganized, and we needed to sit down to put a structure in.
Okay, hold on. We're going for a traffic break, but that sounds like most of us.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Good morning and welcome to The Big Show and The Big Show TV. Our guest for this morning is Dr. Geraldine Tan from the Therapy Room, and we're talking about ADHD today in adults. But, I've been listening to you for the past half an hour right now, and I feel like, everyone has ADHD. I was joking earlier on about FD, but hey, he could possibly have ADHD. I could possibly have ADHD. Maybe not Angel because she's cool and composed, but even that, you never know.
But I can be very focused in the zone as well, so it kind of seems that, and I can't sit still, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like I want ADHD, but do people live with different levels of ADHD? And if it's not ADHD, what do we call it? Non-ADHD? What is it?
When we have a disorder, so I always say this, right? When we have a disorder, it affects our functioning. So it should affect our functioning in one way or another. If it doesn't really affect your functioning, it might not be ADHD.
But that's life, right, Jerry? I'm just echoing the thoughts of people who are watching right now, and they are thinking like all of us, our function or functions get affected. That's life. From time to time, right?
Yes.
We go through, tough days and then, things kind of work out on its own. But now we're calling it a disorder.
Because we can cope.
We can manage it.
We can manage it.
Yep.
Someone with ADHD needs help in managing it.
Okay, so if you can't manage it, it's a disorder.
Yes.
That's basically
So,
it.
Possibly.
It affects you to a point that you find you cannot move forward anymore. And I think I like one of the questions that was asked on the Facebook, like it is can someone recover from ADHD with cognitive maturation? Now, a lot of people have that thought that, oh, you will grow out of a disorder. No, you don't grow out of a disorder. If you use the right word, you cope with it.
cope with it.
You learn to live with it.
Strategies to deal with it. But for the adults with ADHD and they come to us, it probably means that they're at that level that they don't know, they are helpless already, they don't know what to do. So that's why they come forward and they need to look for strategies to manage their disorder.
But isn't it wonderful that once an ADHD person is diagnosed, they then know that they have a disorder and then they try and find out what their strengths are. And
Correct.
once they find out what their strengths are, then they're
Yes.
able to excel at that most of the time, right?
Correct. And we help them to look for the preferences, the way that they deal with things, and how do they work around things. So that's very exciting. I think I promised one of the listeners to give a shout out. So because and it's very relevant because a lot of times epilepsy, so this month is Epilepsy Awareness Month.
Yes.
Yeah, so epilepsy, is a neurological issue. So ADHD is also a neurological issue. So sometimes what happens is the brain malfunctions, right? And some of them, one of the questions that we ask is the developmental history, whether someone has epilepsy, whether someone has very, very high fever, there's an effect on the brain itself that may cause symptoms of ADHD.
All right. Okay.
Yep. So yes, even with epilepsy, a lot of times we do see the signs and symptoms of ADHD.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
We have people asking if things like yoga and meditation help with ADHD.
So it helps to calm the mind down. It helps them to put things in order. So that's the whole idea, and it helps them to reflect what comes first, what comes next, what should I do first, what should I do next. So it is one of the things that can help with just calming them down.
Is it because of all the headstands and all that? The blood is rushing to the head.
Not all yoga people do headstands.
Oh, is it?
No. Half the time we have our leg around our neck anyway.
But I hear headstands are really good. No, I've been trying to do headstands.
Inversions are apparently very
Supposed to be
good.
very
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, it takes some some balance. For some people,
It takes a lot of
It takes a hell of a lot of practice.
and a good wall. A wall helps.
Yeah.
yeah, and you got to be very careful as well. You don't want to break your neck or whatever,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we're not encouraging any children out there to do their
probably
headstands,
try this,
okay?
Yes.
No,
yes.
Glenn is going to try it the next time.
No,
Try
He's
so
going
many
to take a
times
video.
already.
I just want to get someone to just turn me upside down, just hold
Okay,
me.
I'll hold your legs.
Well, they have those machines, right?
Yeah, the
machines where you
inverted
can strap
tables or
in.
something like that.
They strap you in and they
like a
turn you upside
medieval
down.
torture
Yeah,
device.
but that takes up so much space. If not,
No, don't get one
not
for your
a-
house. No,
I'll
no,
get
no. You don't
Yeah.
need one.
But it's icky, I mean, when we were all younger, we tended to maybe lie down on our beds and just kind of
Hang our head.
let our heads hang, right? And I always felt a bit nauseous after a while. It's
it
like
happens when all the blood rushes to you.
yeah, right. It does, right?
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Am I the only one who feels that way?
No, that's why
I
Right,
don't
this
feel
is-
that
nauseous.
way for everybody.
No.
Yeah,
I
which is
don't
why when
feel-
I see people do headstands, I'm like, oh my goodness, what if suddenly the person just vomits, and it just
Ew,
trips?
Glenn. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's why
All right.
it's-
Okay,
Attention
Jerry.
deficit.
Glenn is so ADHD. He goes
Isn't
off
he?
topic.
Off tangent, all the time. All
No,
the time.
it's relevant, right?
How did we go from
Julian, good morning,
ADHD
Julian.
to feeling nauseous?
Morning.
By hanging your head.
Hi,
Morning,
Julian. Oh dear, we were talking about ADHD and Glenn went off topic.
So Glenn has just been diagnosed.
Actually, no. I mean, ADHD was not my idea. It was Jerry's idea to talk about it today. No. ADHD in adults, Julian. Can you believe that? I had no idea something like that even existed.
Neither did I. Neither did I.
Yes.
Any final words, Jerry?
Of course, of course. So one of the other famous people with ADHD is Walt Disney, a personal favorite. And so this quote is actually for his characters, but I'll explain why I use it today. So he says, until a character becomes a personality, it cannot be believed. Without personality, the character may do funny or interesting things, but unless people are able to identify themselves with the character, its actions will seem unreal. And without personality, a story cannot ring true to the audience.
Which means
Yes.
Mickey Mouse had ADHD too.
I think so.
That's his first character, right?
Yeah. Yes. Disney started with a mouse.
With a
But
mouse,
it reminds me, so this quote reminds me of Glenn, right? He has a certain personality, and people identify with him, and because of the personality, his stories always ring through to people.
No.
Yeah. So ADHD is like that, right? Because all of us, think or they put themselves down a lot. But I want that personality to shine through. And I want that authentic personality to shine through. So even with whatever you think your limitations are, we all have strengths and we all have limitations. So once you develop your personality, people will start to resonate with you.
Fantastic.
So that's what I'm going to end with.
Okay. Are you free
Thank you
this
so
week?
much.
Do you have time to see
Oh
me?
God, not again.
She's fully booked. No
This
time.
every so often,
One day she will say yes, and I'll be on her couch.
I might go to Parkway this Friday, right? This
Oh!
To say
Thursday,
cheese.
Thursday or Friday where you are
There you
meeting
go.
French chef, right?
Yes.
Cheese
On the
cheese
18th.
expert.
Cheese
Yeah.
expert, yeah. On the
Yay.
18th. There you go.
All the cheesy people unite. Thank you so much, Jerry, for joining us.
I'll see you next week. Bye
See ya.
bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Jerry.
Bye, Julian.
See you.